Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. American Gods. American Gods is a Hugo and Nebula Award-winning novel by English author Neil Gaiman. The novel is a blend of Americana, fantasy, and various strands of ancient and modern mythology, all centering on the mysterious and taciturn shadow. Several of the themes touched upon in the book were previously glimpsed in the Sandman comic book series. The book was published in 2001 by Headline in the United Kingdom and by William Morrow in the United States. A special 10th anniversary edition, which includes the author's preferred text and 12,000 additional words, was published in June 2011 by William Morrow. The text is identical to the signed and numbered limited edition released in 2003 by Hill House Publishers, and to the edition from Headline, Gaiman's publisher in the UK since 2005. The 10th anniversary edition marks the first time the author's preferred text has been available in wide release outside the UK. Gaiman also did an extensive sold-out book tour celebrating the 10th anniversary and promoting the book in 2011. There are two audio versions of the book, both produced and published by Harper Audio: an unabridged version of the original published edition, read by George Geidel, released in 2001, and a full-cast audiobook version of the 10th anniversary edition, including the author's preferred text and 12,000 additional words, released in 2011. The full-cast audiobook project also was announced on Neil Gaiman's blog, along with a contest in which participants could submit audio auditions, and the winner would get an all-expense-paid trip to New York City to record a part for the audiobook. In March 2017, the Folio Society published a special collector's edition of American Gods with many corrections to the author's preferred text version. Gaiman described it as the cleanest text there has ever been. In April 2017, Starz began airing a television adaptation of the novel. Brian Fuller and Michael Green serve as showrunners, and Gaiman is an executive producer. Plot summary. The central premise of the novel is that gods and mythological creatures exist because people believe in them. Immigrants to the United States brought with them spirits and gods. The power of these mythological beings has diminished as people's beliefs waned. New gods have arisen, reflecting the American obsessions with media, celebrity, technology, and drugs, among other things. Shadow, a taciturn convict reaching the end of a 3-year prison sentence, is released from prison early when his wife, Laura Moon, and best friend, Robbie Burton, die in a car accident, leaving him alone in the world. Bereaved, he takes a job as a bodyguard for a mysterious conman, Mr. Wednesday, who seems to know more about Shadow's life than he lets on. Shadow and Wednesday travel across America visiting Wednesday's unusual colleagues and acquaintances until Shadow learns that Wednesday is in fact an incarnation of Odin, the All-Father. Wednesday is recruiting American manifestations of the old gods of ancient mythology, whose powers have waned as their believers have decreased in number, to participate in an epic battle against the new American gods manifestations of modern life and technology, such as the internet, media, and modern means of transport. Shadow meets many gods and magical creatures, including Mr. Nancy, Zernabog, and a leprechaun named Mad Sweeney who gives Shadow a magical gold coin. Shadow tosses the coin into his wife's grave, inadvertently bringing her back from the dead as a semi-living revenant. Shadow and Wednesday try to rally the old gods to fight the new, but most are reluctant to get involved. The new gods abduct Shadow, but Laura rescues him, killing several men in black in the process. Wednesday hides Shadow first, with a few stray Egyptian gods who run a funeral parlor in Illinois, and then in the sleepy Great Lakes community of Lakeside. Shadow meets many colorful locals in Lakeside, including Hinzelman, an old-timer who spins tall tales, and Chad Mulligan, the workaday local chief of police. Lakeside is tranquil and idyllic, but Shadow suspects something is not quite right about the town. While neighboring communities turn into ghost towns, Lakeside is mysteriously resilient. Disappearances of children occur with unusual frequency. Shadow is unable to investigate further, busily traveling across the U.S. with Wednesday, meeting the likes of Johnny Appleseed and the goddess Easter to solicit their help. They are pursued all the while by the men in black, particularly Mr. Town, who blames Shadow for the death of his friends. Finally, the new gods seek to parley with Wednesday, but they murder him at the meeting. This act galvanizes the other old gods into action, and they rally behind a common banner to face their enemies in battle. Shadow is bound by his contract with Wednesday to hold his vigil by reenacting Odin's time hanging from a world tree, while pierced by a spear. Shadow dies and visits the land of the dead, where he is guided by Thoth and judged by Anubis. Easter later brings him back to life. During his time between life and death, Shadow learns that he is Wednesday's son, conceived as part of the deity's plans. He realizes Mr. World is secretly Loki Liasmith, and that Odin and Loki have been working a two-man con. They orchestrated Shadow's birth, his meeting of Loki in disguise in prison, and Laura's death. As part of the con, Loki had ordered Odin's murder so that the battle between the new and old gods would serve as a sacrifice to Odin, restoring his power, while Loki would feed on the chaos of the battle. Shadow arrives at Rock City, the site of the climactic battle, in time to stop it. He explains that both sides have nothing to gain and everything to lose, with Odin and Loki as the only true winners. The US is a bad place for gods, Shadow tells them, and he recommends they return home. The gods depart. Odin's ghost fades, and Laura impales Loki on a branch of the world tree. She finally dies after Shadow takes the magical coin from her. Shadow returns to Lakeside, where he finally stumbles on the town's secret. The missing children have been abducted by Hinzelman, who is a kobold. Hinzelman blessed and protected the town, making it prosper despite the hardships plaguing the rest of the region, in exchange for the town's unwitting sacrifice of their young. After a confrontation with Shadow, Hinzelman is killed by Chad Mulligan. In Iceland, Shadow meets another incarnation of Odin who was created by the belief of the original settlers of Iceland, and is therefore much closer to the Odin of mythology than Wednesday was. Shadow accuses Odin of Wednesday's actions, whereupon Odin replies that, "He was me, yes, but I am not him." Shadow gives Odin Wednesday's glass eye, which Odin places in a leather bag as a keepsake. Shadow performs a simple sleight of hand coin trick, which delights Odin enough that he asks for a repeat performance. Shadow then performs a small bit of real magic, pulling a golden coin from nowhere. He flips it into the air and, without waiting to see if it ever lands, walks down the hill, away from the god and out into the world. The book also features many subplots and cutaway scenes detailing the adventures of various mythical beings in the US. The Queen of Sheba works as a prostitute, staying young and powerful by preying on the men she sleeps with. A salesman from Oman meets a cab-driving Ifrit. The first Viking explorers to come to the US bring their gods, including Odin, with them. A Cornish woman turns fugitive in the New World, inadvertently populating it with the Pixies. and fairies of her native country. Slaves from Africa populate the Caribbean islands and the U.S. with their tribal gods, and Indiana, 1400 BC, the gods of the very first American immigrants are born. Characters: Shadow Moon, an ex-convict who becomes the reluctant bodyguard and errand boy of Mr. Wednesday. Laura Moon, Shadow Moon's wife who died in a car crash at the beginning of the novel a few days before Shadow is due to be released from prison. Samantha, Sam Black Crow, a hitchhiking college student Shadow meets during his journey. Chad Mulligan, a kind-hearted chief of police in the town of Lakeside. Old gods: Mr. Wednesday, an aspect of Odin, the Old Norse god of knowledge and wisdom. Zernebog, the Slavic god of darkness, twin brother to Belobog, the god of light. The Zorya sisters, relatives of Zernebog, are sisters representing the morning star, the evening star, and the midnight star. In Slavic lore, they are servants of Dazbog who guard and watch over the doomsday hound, Simurgl, who is chained to the star Polaris in the constellation Ursa Minor, the Little Bear. If the chain ever breaks, the hound will devour the world. Mr. Nancy, Anansi, a trickster Spider-Man from African folklore. He often makes fun of people for their stupidity, a recurring aspect of his personality in his old stories. Mr. Ibis, Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of knowledge and writing. He runs a funeral parlor with Mr. Jackal in Cairo, Illinois. He often writes short biographies of people who brought folkloric beings with them to America. Mr. Jackal, Anubis, the ancient Egyptian god of the dead and mummification. He is an expert at preparing bodies for the wake at funerals. Easter Ostra, the Germanic goddess of the dawn. Mad Sweeney, Suivni, a king from an old Irish story. Though not portrayed as such in his story, he calls himself a leprechaun, and is foul-mouthed, a frequent drinker, and taller than expected. Whiskey Jack, Wiseacre Jack, a trickster figure of Algonquin mythology. He lives near a Lakota reservation in the Badlands with John Chapman, where he is mistaken for Iktomi, a trickster of their culture. John Chapman, Johnny Appleseed, Loki, Lyra Smith, Loki, the Old Norse god of mischief and trickery. Hinzelman, a kobold who was formerly revered as a tribal god by ancient Germanic tribes. He protects the town of Lakeside, in the guise of an old man, by sacrificing one child each year. Bilquis, Queen of Sheba, as mentioned in the Bible. Nimaji Kali, the Hindu goddess of time and destruction. New Gods, the technical boy, new god of computers and the internet. Media, new goddess of television. She appears in the form of Lucy Ricardo from the well-known show, I Love Lucy, and a female news anchor. The Black Hats, Mr. World, Mr. Town, Mr. Wood and Mr. Stone exist out of the American obsession with black helicopters and the Men in Black. They work as spooks for the new gods, the intangibles, new gods of the modern stock market, the personification of the invisible hand of the market. Influences. The novel's dedication reads, "For absent friends, Kathy Acker and Roger Zelazny, and all points in between." Various real-life towns and tourist attractions, including the house on the Rock and Rock City, are featured through the course of the book. Gaiman states in an introduction that he has obscured the precise location of some actual locales. According to Gaiman, American Gods is not based on Diana Wynne Jonas' 8 Days of Luke. Although they bear an odd relationship, like second cousins once removed or something. When working on the structure of a story linking gods and days of the week, he realized that this idea had already been used in 8 Days of Luke. He abandoned the story. but later used the idea when writing American Gods to depict Wednesday and Shadow meeting on the god's namesake day. About John James' novel Votan, Gaiman stated, "I think probably the best book ever done about the Norse was a book that I couldn't allow myself to read between coming up with the idea of American Gods and finishing it. After it was published, I actually sat down and allowed myself to read it for the first time in 15 years and discovered it was just as good as I thought it was." The novel also shares a number of themes and images with Gaiman's comic book series The Sandman. For instance, in American Gods, Shadow dreams of thunderbirds and a mountain of bones. Similarly, in The Sandman, A Dream of 1,000 Cats, a cat speaks of a dream in which she is wandering a mountain of bones and being circled by a bird similar in description to the thunderbirds of American Gods. In addition, one chapter features a young girl, described in a way similar to the Sandman's character Delirium. Also, the device of traveling around America to visit old shabby gods was used in the Brief Lives storyline, where Dream goes on a road trip for that purpose. Website tie-in. While Gaiman was writing American Gods, his publishers set up a promotional website featuring a weblog in which Gaiman described the day-to-day process of writing, revising, publishing, and promoting the novel. After the novel was published, the website evolved into a more general official Neil Gaiman website, and Gaiman still regularly adds to the weblog, describing the day-to-day process of being Neil Gaiman and writing, revising, publishing, or promoting his current project. On the 28th of February 2008, Gaiman announced on his journal that, for 1 month, the complete text of American Gods would be available to the public on his publisher's website. Reception. The book won the 2002 Hugo, Nebula, Locus, SFX Magazine and Bram Stoker Awards, all for Best Novel, and likewise received nominations for the 2001 BSFA Award, as well as the 2002 World Fantasy, International Horror Guild and Mythopoeic and British Fantasy Awards. It won the 2003 Geffen Award. In May 2010, American Gods was selected in an online poll to be the first One Book One Twitter book adaptation. In July 2014, it was announced that Starz would be developing the series with Brian Fuller and Michael Green. The series debuted in April 2017. Related works. Gaiman's subsequent novel, Anansi Boys, was actually conceived before American Gods, and shares a character, Mr. Nancy. It is not a sequel, but could possibly be of the same fictional world, although Anansi, the spider god of African legend, appears in both American Gods and Anansi Boys, implying a connection. One of Gaiman's signature touches is the use of illusion, both to works by other authors and to mechanics and themes used in his own books. Though some elements from American Gods are mentioned in Anansi Boys, none of the gods of the latter mention the importance of people's belief in them, and only deities of African and Caribbean folk tales are seen and mentioned. In an interview with MTV News published on the 22nd of June 2011, Gaiman announced he had plans for a direct sequel to American Gods. He was apparently planning to write a sequel even as he was writing the first book. The sequel is likely to focus more on the new gods. In December 2011, Gaiman announced that in January 2012, he would begin work on what is essentially American Gods 2. In addition to the planned sequel, Gaiman has written 2 short story sequels featuring Shadow Moon, the Monarch of the Glen, first published in Legends 2, takes place in Scotland, 2 years after American Gods. The second short story, Black Dog, written for Gaiman's short story collection Trigger Warning, takes place a year later in Derbyshire's Peak District. The Terry Pratchett novel Small Gods explores a similar thought-form origin of deities. While Neil Gaiman says he did not read the novel, he explains he had a similar worldview to Pratchett due to their same geographic origin and daily phone conversations. He also sought advice from Pratchett on resolving plot elements of American Gods. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.